On the day we were supposed to leave for our honeymoon, I was stunned when Terry handed me divorce papers. He informed me that he planned to take his entire family on what was meant to be our romantic getaway, adding that if I didn't agree, we could simply go our separate ways. Inside, I was furious, but I managed to keep my composure and replied calmly, "That's fine, but remember, I'm still my own person." The surprise on his face gave me a small sense of satisfaction. "My name is Lauren, and I'm 38 years old, working in real estate. My career has been fulfilling, and I'm grateful for the support of my colleagues. While my work is satisfying, my personal life has always been quiet. I don't have many hobbies and had never been in a relationship until recently. Watching my friends settle down in their 30s made me feel a bit left behind, and seeing younger colleagues frequently move on to other roles only added to that feeling." Then I met Terry, introduced by a mutual friend. He was 3 years younger, with a warm smile that always made me feel comfortable. Terry was a quiet listener, never one to dominate the conversation, which made me feel valued and understood in ways I hadn't experienced before. Given my lack of romantic experience, I quickly became fond of him, and our relationship grew steadily. When we started talking about marriage, Terry's simple agreement felt natural. We'd be making decisions together, planning a wedding, deciding on a honeymoon, and choosing a future home. I looked forward to these milestones, imagining we'd face them together. Yet, I noticed that Terry rarely offered his own ideas. He always agreed with my suggestions, which made me wonder if he'd truly stand beside me in the long term. There was also another concern, my relationship with my mother-in-law. Unlike Terry's easygoing nature, she was assertive, often disregarding my opinions. At our first meeting, she had laid out her expectations clearly. "Lauren, once you're married, you'll leave your job to focus on the household, right? You're not getting any younger, and if you wait too long, you might not have children. Terry is working hard, so you should dedicate yourself to family life." She held traditional views, believing that the husband should work while the wife managed the home. What she didn't know was that I actually earned more than Terry. He didn't mind this and had even mentioned it to his parents. But his mother was critical, saying, "A woman who earns more than her husband isn't appealing. Besides, can you even manage household chores?" Her words were condescending, casting doubt on my ability to cook, clean, or care for my husband. Despite her judgments, I knew I was fully capable of managing a household. I had lived independently for years and was determined not to abandon my career after marriage. When my mother-in-law criticized me, Terry stayed silent, simply nodding in agreement with her. His lack of support made me wonder if I could rely on him in the future. Part of me thought he might become more assertive as he matured, but another part worried that if this marriage didn't work, I might not have another chance. My mind was torn between hope and uncertainty. In the midst of these doubts, the wedding planning consumed my days. I juggled endless details, choosing a venue, arranging a honeymoon, coordinating time off work. As the stress mounted, so did my anxiety about the future. One day, I brought up our honeymoon plans, mentioning that, due to our work schedules, we had a narrow window for a long trip. "Should we go during this time?" I asked. "Yeah, that sounds good to me," Terry replied. It was fortunate that both our schedules aligned, making this the perfect opportunity for a honeymoon. However, there was a snag with the wedding venue. The place I had dreamed of was fully booked for the next year. "What do you think about taking the honeymoon before the wedding?" I suggested. "Some couples do that, and if we waited until after, it might be years before we could take the trip." "If you're okay with it, Lauren, then I'm fine with it too," Terry replied. Although I appreciated his lack of opposition, his easy agreement left me wishing he'd offer more of his own thoughts. Still, I moved forward with our plans. We eventually decided on Europe for our honeymoon. I was torn between Florida, with its ease and convenience, and Europe's allure. In the end, I chose Italy, captivated by the idea of walking through beautiful streets, enjoying exquisite food, and shopping at local boutiques for unique keepsakes and elegant tableware to celebrate the start of our new life together. After carefully weighing schedules and destinations, I finalized all our travel arrangements about a month before we were set to leave. My excitement was sky high. It would be my first trip overseas, and I couldn't wait to embark on this adventure with Terry. I hoped it would bring us closer and inspire him to open up more. Planning our European honeymoon had fully absorbed me. I spent days selecting travel essentials and mapping out our itinerary, feeling genuine joy that momentarily eased any lingering doubts I had about Terry. But a week before we were supposed to leave, Terry came to me with an unexpected request. I was curious since he rarely asked for anything directly. Could it be something special for the trip? Maybe a hidden gem in Venice he wanted to explore? Eager to hear, I asked what was on his mind. Without missing a beat, he dropped a bombshell. "I want to go to Burano while we're in Venice. Mom's been wanting to see it." I stared, stunned. "Your mom? Wait, what do you mean?" I could hardly process what he was suggesting, but Terry looked at me as if this were all completely natural. Well, since everyone's coming along, we'll all be together for the trip, right? Everyone? What are you talking about? This is our honeymoon, Terry, it's supposed to be just us, I said, struggling to mask my frustration. But he continued calmly, Mom thinks it's perfectly normal for the whole family to join us. I felt my pulse quicken. Terry, I made reservations for the two of us only. The final booking deadline was a few days ago, and today's the last chance to confirm. If you're serious about this, you'll have to check with the travel agency. Before I could fully absorb the situation, the intercom buzzed. On the screen, I saw my in-laws, luggage in hand. They strolled in as if this were an ordinary visit. My mother-in-law's face lit up as she exclaimed, I thought we'd just leave our bags here since we're leaving soon. Terry quickly echoed, yeah, just leave the luggage here, helping them settle in without a second thought. I was flustered, and my words tumbled out. Wait a minute. I tried to step in, scrambling for some semblance of control over our trip. My mother-in-law shot me a sharp look, her tone edged with irritation. What's the issue, Lauren? Don't tell me you suddenly don't want us to come along, she said, almost daring me to object. I never agreed to this arrangement in the first place, I replied, my voice firm yet shaky. I pushed back, but my mother-in-law barely acknowledged me. She turned to Terry instead, angling for his support. You heard her, Terry. She just said no, but we always planned to go together, didn't we? She nudged him. Terry, looking uncomfortable but unwilling to oppose her, nodded. Yeah, he murmured, reinforcing her assumption. Sensing her advantage, my mother-in-law pressed on, disregarding my objections. It's perfectly normal for the husband's parents to join a honeymoon. Do you have no sense? I hope you won't ruin this trip by making a fuss. We're going to make good memories together. I'll have to teach you some common sense this week before we leave. It's a special honeymoon, after all. It felt as if the ground was shifting beneath me. My frustration finally boiled over. This is a honeymoon, I protested. It's meant to be for the two of us. But my mother-in-law remained unmoved. A husband's parents coming along is simply common sense. I'm surprised you'd rather exclude us. I thought we were becoming family, but it seems your ideas of common sense are different. It's sad that you don't seem to like me, she lamented, her tone heavy with feigned disappointment. Her words dripped with manipulation, and I could feel Terry starting to align himself with her. Lauren, what's your problem? They're my parents, he said, casting me as unreasonable in this family versus individual standoff. It's not feasible for all of us to go together, I stated firmly. I booked everything for just the two of us, and, honestly, I've never heard of families joining a honeymoon. Terry's frustration flared. I can't believe you dislike my parents so much, Lauren, that's enough. A triumphant grin spread across my mother-in-law's face. Seeing Terry side with her so unthinkingly on something so personal cut me deeply. Before I could respond, Terry guided me toward the door. The last thing I saw was his mother's smug expression as I stepped outside, feeling isolated and betrayed. Why was I cast as the villain? Why did this trip have to be marred by so much conflict? I stood there, tears streaming down my face. Hours later, a message from Terry appeared on my phone. Check if it's still possible for them to join the tour. If not, we'll cancel and find a trip for all four of us. Think rationally so we can work this out. I was stunned. His message was devoid of apology, as though this problem stemmed entirely from me. The next few days were silent between us. Then, on the morning of our planned departure, I was still emotionally shaken but felt I couldn't just abandon everything I had prepared. As I was getting ready, the intercom buzzed. Terry was here, though strangely, he carried no luggage. Instead, he handed me an envelope. Inside were divorce papers. After hurting my parents, you still planned to go on this trip, didn't you? He accused. I'm taking my family on this honeymoon. His words hit like a slap, signaling the bitter end to what should have been a joyful start to our lives together. If you don't like it, let's just get a divorce. My mom thinks it's for the best, he added, pushing the papers toward me. At that moment, I saw him clearly. I'd once believed Terry would listen to me, that he'd stand by my side, but his real nature lay in placing his family's demands above anything else, even our relationship. This was the real Terry, the one who had no space for my feelings at all. As the truth sank in, my feelings for Terry cooled considerably. The idea of marrying him now felt like a trap, and becoming part of a family with such a controlling mother-in-law seemed out of the question. With newfound clarity, I looked at the divorce papers he'd shoved at me and, with a steady voice, said, fine, but remember, I'm still single. Single? What are you talking about? He stammered, caught off guard. Did you forget? We agreed to hold off on the official marriage registration until the wedding day. You didn't object, Terry. In fact, you said, if you're fine with it, Lauren, then I'm fine too. So here we are, no divorce needed, because we're not actually married. And this honeymoon? I can go on it under my maiden name, no problem. His face twisted through a range of emotions, finally settling on frustration. He raised his voice. Are you seriously throwing away our marriage over a honeymoon? Get a grip, Lauren. I held my ground. This is me being rational. I was so focused on getting married that I ignored the reality of who you are. I can't be happy with someone who doesn't respect or support their partner. I'd rather stay single forever than live like that. Thank you for helping me see that. His tone softened as he seemed to sense what he was losing. Lauren, wait. Let's calm down and try again, okay? His voice cracked, his eyes misting with regret, but my mind was made up. If you're set on a family trip, go ahead, with your family of 3. You'll be the one handling everything, booking, planning, all of it. If you're really up for that, then go ahead, Mr. Indecisive. To underscore my decision, I pulled out the unsigned marriage certificate, tore it up right in front of him, and watched as his mouth dropped open, stunned by my resolve. Now do you see how serious I am? I refuse to compromise my future. It's over, Terry. Go back to your mom and cry it out. She's the one you're committed to anyway. Without another word, I shut the door behind him. I could easily picture him running back to his mother, and that only reassured me that I'd made the right choice. Afterward, I contacted the tour company to cancel our honeymoon reservations. Since it was a same-day cancellation, we were charged in full. I forwarded the bill to Terry. It only seemed fair, as his actions had turned our plans upside down. True to form, Terry went on to blame me for our breakup and spread rumors among friends and coworkers, but instead of sympathy, he earned a reputation as an immature mama's boy. His recent behavior only reinforced this image, and most people began to see him for who he was. When I shared the decision with my parents, they were surprised but quickly supportive. Marriage isn't the only way to find happiness, my mother told me, reassuringly. As long as you're content, that's what matters. Her words lifted my spirits, and I felt grateful for their unwavering support. Ironically, this ordeal rekindled my love for travel. I decided to use my vacation days and take my first solo trip overseas, visiting historic cities I'd always dreamed of seeing. The experience was empowering, and traveling alone turned out to be immensely satisfying. Embracing solo travel, I planned further trips, with another overseas adventure already on the horizon. This new chapter of my life is filled with freedom and discovery, a journey shaped by my own choices, without anyone else's expectations or restrictions.